The auto companies will be announcing their sales figures for the month of June today, and the auto industry has been one of the leading industries in this fairly lackluster economic recovery. GM, Ford, and Chrysler, Detroit's big three, all gained market share in the first 5 months of this year. That's the first time this has happened in about 18 years. So it's really a triumphant comeback for Chrysler and GM, which filed for bankruptcy protection. Of course, Ford, which didn't have to go get a bailout, but of course did restructure through some painful times as well.
You know, and Tom and I were talking before about when we're going to hit that 6 million mark for total vehicle sales. When could that actually happen if we're around 5.5 for this month?
Right. Well, according to analyst estimates, 1.4 million cars were probably sold in June. If you work that out to a seasonally adjusted annualized rate, it'd be about 15.6 million. So we're not going to get to that 16 million number that I think you're referring to.
Right.
17 million is the peak, but 15.6 million is a pretty steady pace.
And part of the problem, or one of the issues going forward, right, we've seen the 10-year yield rise, we've seen mortgage rates rise. What's the trickle down to car loans? Can I afford to get a car?
Yeah, a lot of people are wondering about that because right now car loans are still fairly low in terms of the interest rates, and that's because it's a short duration. It's usually for 3 months, 3 years, 5 years. It's not for 30 years like a mortgage.
Sharon Bernanke has pointed this out in speeches, that the distinction here is your short duration in automobiles versus a long duration credit loan of housing, which is a lot harder to get. But he's really counting on this to be part of that economic recovery.
And so far it's working. The other thing is banks do prefer lending to people who are making car purchases because you need your car to get to work. You're probably not going to default on that loan first. And also it's easier to repossess a car if a loan defaults than it is to repossess a house. I mean, that's one of the distinctions there. One thing that we do know is there's still a lot of pent-up demand for new cars. The average age of cars on the road in the U.S. is more than 11 years old.
Right.
And people keep talking about that. They're old. They're gas guzzlers.
And I just got my learner's permit, so I could possibly be in the market within the next year, which is very exciting.
This is frightening.
This
you have a learner's permit in
alert.
Manhattan?
I just got it a couple weeks ago. It was a really big deal, so I could be on that road.
She's a Manhattan born and bred girl.
I haven't even started to drive. This is just the written test here. We're step by step. But my question, though, is the trickle down. Because you take a look at, say, the shale boom, you look at North and South Dakota, they're booming. Detroit's not.
Detroit's not, and that's the thing. Most of these big three automakers have their operations outside of the city of Detroit. So some of the surrounding suburbs are doing better than the city itself.
Do we buy cars off the internet? David Bell with us, professor of marketing at Wharton, as we look at Amazon here in a bit. Is the internet help me buy a car?
Oh, absolutely. Certainly with the pre-screening, Tom, it allows you to compare models, compare prices, get a lot of information before you go into a dealership.
I mean, I look at this and I look at the full disclosure, folks. I'm like Alex Steele. I don't have my driver's license anymore. We're such slaves to Manhattan, and I'm, you know, a learner's permit.
Yeah, learners. Do you know how to drive? That's the real question.
Yeah, I know how to drive.
You know, I don't.
You don't even know how to drive.
No.
You guys can come up to the suburbs. I'll drive you
Richard's
around.
over there cracking up about this, by the way.
This is frightening. David, I mean, what would be your marketing prescription for Detroit? How do they get the sex back into what they're doing?
Well, I think they've got to get people excited about the city. I saw something recently, yesterday, in fact, Tom, about how now younger people are coming back in and building startups in Detroit. I mean, it's just a beginning. It's not the boom town that we see in other parts of the U.S., but I think it's coming back.
I can honestly say I never thought we'd get back to 16 million units. Will Morris, our research director here at Surveillance, Honda, East Liberty, Ohio, Greensburg, Indiana, Lincoln, Alabama, and Marysville, Ohio.
Yeah, Honda is now going to be exporting more North American-made cars by the year 2014 than it is importing cars from Japan. Honda's become part of this big U.S. export auto story that we had kind of forgotten about. It's an interesting
twist. We talk about
big
three, but it's actually in the Spartanburg is BMW.
BMW, yep.
As well.
And the interesting effect, too, will be as new cars continue to increase, what happens to the used car market? I mean, that was really booming over the recession, right? And that's something actually you can go online and really research your used cars. So what happens there?
Yeah, it'll boom as well. There we go. 11 million. 11 years old.
11 years old.
That's
Tom's Nash on the road. Or actually, it's not on the road because it's not a driver's license.
Mine skews the meat. It does skew. I can get up to 40 on the Taconic freeway.